Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome into yet another episode here of Weathered Questions. Myself, meteorologist Kaj O'Mara, alongside meteorologist Jan Kaj. It is the podcast that's all about your weather wonderings. If you want to know always what's on your radar, you can email us your questions to weatheredquestions@gmail.com to join in on the conversation. Jan, how's your day going so far?
Going really well. How have things been for you?
Very good.
Good.
Very good, I'd say.
Yeah,
We're getting ramped up for school already.
It really is. You jump into August and things just go so quickly towards first day of school, don't they?
Well, and you think about all the extra activities. Athletics are starting. Band may have been already going, depending on where you're at. And, 3 weeks from now, we're already talking about first days of school in some areas. So, I mean, it's really something to hear about this and be part of this. And summer's done. Hope you had a good one.
Not done yet. If anybody listening, I mean, we got obviously a lot of Iowans that listen, several from other parts of the world that maybe have heard of the Iowa State Fair. That's still coming up for us. That is
true. Good point.
And it's not the end of summer until the fair is over.
Forgot about the fair. I forgot about the state fair.
I know. I'm excited. Lots of good food this year.
Yeah, well, there's good food every year, but I've heard about some of the new ones this year. They're really looking
yeah,
fun.
Anyone not familiar with Iowa and the Iowa State Fair, you got to check it out at least once.
You do. This year's dates, by the way, 13th through 23rd.
Yeah.
A little bit later in the month than some years. So 13th through 23rd, it is a 10-day fair. So it's in Des Moines. You can't miss it. Believe me. The traffic alone will let you know it's there.
It's a good time. We've had plenty of fairs in the past that have not, pun intended, fared well in terms of weather. We'll see how we go this year.
Yeah.
We've had some years recently where there's really big hailstorms and there's not a lot of good cover, at least for the vehicles that are out there. But
we'll do some Iowa State Fair weather history for our episode next week. I think that'll be very timely.
That sounds very good. Speaking of, thanks for everybody for bearing with us for no episode last week. Summer schedule has gotten in the way a little bit, but we are back and we've got a whole horde of questions because it has been an active weather time for us in the Midwest. Lots of rain and storms. So our first question here kind of covers some recent storms that hit the eastern Iowa area. So eastern Iowa listener asking, how did all of this heavy rain happen, but it was never super, super hot? That one in reference, I think, to the most recent kind of weekend storms that led us into the weekend, at least. Guy?
Yeah, that one is probably referencing Friday into Saturday morning with how many episodes of rain that came through. Very humid in the area, but it never really got hot. And that seems to be kind of a common misnomer here. We didn't really have any severe weather. That's the one big difference. It can absolutely rain at any temperature above 32. It can actually rain below 32, but that's for a different episode.
We'll save that one.
Yeah, the higher the dew point is in our atmosphere, which is literally an absolute measure of moisture content, the more moisture that's literally present. And if you were to take that air on a given day and just heat it up from the sun and let it sit there, you're going to at least probably, depending on the upper level temperatures, get at least some clouds to form. But when you have a system like we had Friday into early Saturday, a low pressure system come through and actually lift that air up, it doesn't really matter what your temperature is down near the ground because the air is getting lifted in that case. And it lifts up, it condenses out. For anybody in eastern Iowa who was around Friday into early Saturday and saw the rain come through, the clouds were extremely low on that day, which is an indication that the humidity is very high. And as a result, it didn't take much at all to squeeze all the moisture out that we could. And that low continued spiraling through Friday night to early Saturday, and temperatures fell in the 60s, yet heavy rain continued. The bottom line is, as long as the mechanism is there, which in this case was an actual low pressure system, it can squeeze on the atmosphere all day and all night. Just keep bringing moisture to it. So that's the key difference there. This wasn't a heat-driven situation. This was a mechanically driven situation in the atmosphere. So good question, though. Good question, because we hear about this a lot.
We do. And you mentioned that storm just kept kind of spiraling across. I think we got a couple comments in about how pretty that storm was to look at on radar and stuff. And, why does it look like that cinnamon roll shape? And all of our low pressure systems do have that shape. It's just maybe you don't always see it in the banding of the rain, depending on, again, how exactly, what is forming it, what's forcing it, all of that. But because of the nature of what you just described, of that more mechanically driven system, you can kind of see the rain bands a little bit more defined. They come across a little bit easier on radar, and it really is kind of a pretty system to watch as it moves across.
Yeah. Meanwhile, to the south of the system, it was really hot in the southern plains. I saw Friday afternoon, Oklahoma City hit 106 degrees. It bested the National Weather Service forecast by 6, I think, maybe 7.
Yeah.
And it was
it's just so hard to go past that 100-degree mark, right?
It is. But down there, they surged past it there on Friday. So stuff's finally starting to, quiet down a little bit, to the extent that we're looking at a little bit less extreme weather here this week, which is good. It's very good. Speaking of that, there were a few warnings that came out. Nothing came of them late last week. But this comes in from a central Iowa listener, Jan. Question is, I look up and see turning in the clouds a lot. How do I know when it's safe or not? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, generally the simple answer to the untrained eye especially is, if you see rotation, if you see turning in the clouds, get to that safe place. It's probably not safe. However, this does happen a lot, right? We had a little bit of this with that same system that we were just talking about. We had a couple of systems earlier on last month that did similar stuff, where there was some churning, some turning in the clouds, some seeming rotation, but nothing ever really came of them. Essentially, I mean, the really simplified answer is, if it's higher up rotation, if it's slow rotation, you're generally a little bit safer. But absolutely keep an eye on it. If you are, looking to go that direction or be outside, don't just ignore it. It's not like, oh yeah, it's slow, it's fine, nothing is going to happen. Nothing's happening yet. But again, the best advice is, if you see any rotation at all, definitely then the atmosphere is capable of producing that. It could intensify at any point, and you don't want to be under that if that does happen.
Yep, I'd agree with that assessment. And then another fun thing here is, depending on what type of turning in the clouds you see, if there's no precip going on, sometimes our brain likes to fall for some illusion tricks. And if it's spring or fall, especially if we've got a system incoming, the low clouds might be moving in different directions than the upper clouds. And without a storm in the area, unless you're a pilot, without a storm in the area, that is harmless to people on the ground. Now, to us, it might be like, oh, the lowest clouds are moving from right to left, and then the higher clouds are moving from left to right. Well, yeah, that's just different directions in the atmosphere, but unless they are interacting with a storm or anything like that, and you can see that especially in the fall season, when we start to see some big time temperature transitions or big time warm-ups sometimes. In the springtime, you can have really stiff east to west winds, and then all of a sudden, maybe 5,000 feet up, the winds reverse, and the cloud layers are moving in different directions, but you don't have any harm on the ground, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling this listener was probably thinking about within a storm, within the way you answered it.
Yeah, I'm guessing so.
I'm guessing.
Based on recent weather.
Yep, but otherwise, that's another way to, if the atmosphere is kind of churning a little bit, that's just simply called wind shear.
I was just going to say that situation you just described, it's something we've talked about on here a lot, but it's a perfect example of that big fancy phrase, directional wind shear. That is one of those cases where you can actually see it, because usually in a tornadic event or something like that, like there's so much cloud cover overhead, you can't see through those thick layers of clouds. But there are those occasions where you can actually see the different layers of clouds changing direction with height, and that's exactly it. It's directional shear.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. All right, Kai. We're keeping on the storm theme here. This is a little bit of a follow-up to our 5.2 episode where we talked a lot about radar, and got just kind of a little mess of questions here about future radar timing, how that works, maybe the best radar, where to what app you use, or how you should get that radar, and a couple other questions related to why does my radar look different sometimes compared to others. And we've dove into a few of these sometimes, but maybe we'll just do a little bit of a kind of high level overview of that. And if you want some more, you can go back to 5.2 or write in with a specific kind of radar question about those.
Yeah. So future radar, unless it's explicitly stated otherwise, it's usually done by television stations, but you can also see it with a variety of apps. It's probably taking what we call an operational model, which means all the data comes in and it's processed and it's spit back out. Nobody reviews it.
Yep.
Nobody quality checks it. It just goes out to the world that way.
It's straight model data.
Straight data. Now, sometimes straight data isn't bad. Sometimes it's really bad. I mean, like, embarrassingly bad. And that's what
you
we
could compare it to what we're going through right now with talking to an AI chatbot. Yep. And how sometimes it'll give you a great response. And sometimes it'll give you a response that you're like, that doesn't seem right. Yeah. Same kind of thing.
That's a great comparison, actually, because that's what it really is it's what we call a deterministic model. It's just determining an outcome by a set of input that it's given. So we call that model initialization. And if it initializes wrong, then the future cast or future track or whatever marketing title is on it is going to be wrong. Like it will. It's just, how wrong is it? Is it really wrong or just a little bit wrong? And so I would say that in large scale rain systems, big cold rains like we see in the fall, those are actually pretty well handled. It's the situations that have extreme thunderstorm events or pop-up thunderstorm events with the heating of the day. That's what we call convection in the atmosphere. When those start popping up, that's when things get really, really iffy on some of these models. And I will say that I saw an example last week, and a meteorologist put this out there on social media, and I'm not going to say who they are. It wound up working well for them. Some critics, though, were saying, well, you got lucky because it was what they call a deterministic model run for a huge line of storms that had not yet developed.
Okay.
And it was posted out there as verbatim gospel, pay attention. And 6 hours prior, it was a completely different story. But as soon as that event gelled up, it actually looked reasonably close to what the meteorologist posted. But that is a high risk situation. And in that case, it was a high award situation. But otherwise, it was not a situation that you would want to ever try and take a risk with. So that's why you sometimes see a little bit of things that are kind of different with those future tracks and future casts. And I think one of the ground rules on future cast is there's no human looking at that, no matter what the app is. Look for a video forecast if you can.
Yes. And I think that gets at a core question that we get a lot of, why do things vary? Why do different meteorologists have different forecasts? Why is my weather app better than this meteorologist, or why is this meteorologist better than my weather app? Right? It's model data, maybe at a different time, maybe a different run. And if you don't have that human component to it, that person that's looking at it and assessing it and truly analyzing it, then you may be missing out on a important component of what is actually driving that storm or system and what is going to be impacting it.
Yep. And then when it comes to your weather app and the visuals, so depending on what app you're using, we've got different types of radars out there. A lot of people don't realize this, that it's not just NEXRAD radar that's out there. And that's traditionally what you're going to see on 90% of weather apps. There's a different type of radar called a TDWR that is actually operated by the FAA. And it's proximate to some of the larger international airports. In our area, Minneapolis has one. Chicago actually has two. Chicago has one for O'Hare and has another one for Midway. We don't have any for Des Moines. We have none for Des Moines. I think Kansas City might have one, but I'm not for sure.
Think of those bigger airports, those ones that don't necessarily only connect with a regional jet. Those ones are the ones who are probably going to have them.
Yeah. And so the difference between the two, NexRad is going to catch a lot of different things better than the TDWR is, unless you're talking about strictly wind. And a lot of us aren't using a weather app to look at radar wind values. But the purpose of a TDWR, I'll spare everybody the story. Way back when, a microburst took down an airplane. And they said, we have to make sure that we can detect this better. And so that is kind of the start of how TDWR came out. These radars spin faster. Their beams are narrower. And so they can't see as far, but they can see very detailed data, especially when it comes to wind, because with a narrower beam, you can't see hail very well. Even large drops of rain kind of reflect back weird. So the NexRad radar is what you're largely going to be using for hail detection. And that's like any radar that starts with letter K on it is going to be your NexRad radars. So that's one big difference. And then otherwise, you might also see something called a composite image, which is like this blurred green, yellow, red blob that animates really weirdly and may or may not detect things very well in your area. Sometimes people have complained that it's raining in my area, but the radar is not showing anything. It's because the resolution's so coarse, it can't even see that little storm. And it's done to keep things cheap. It's done to keep things on an easy and fast load time for various apps. So if you see a kind of a cartoony look to radar, I guarantee you, Jan, it's composite. I guarantee it.
And it's kind of smoothing out. Yeah. It's smoothing out some of the features of it, and that can mean you're going to miss some things, depending. But for the general public, it usually does the job of, is it going to rain? Is it going to be heavy? Kind of thing. But as meteorologists, we tend to avoid that because we aren't able to really dissect a storm as well.
Yeah. For those real big weather nerds in the audience right now, which I guess if you're listening to the podcast, you have to have some interest in weather.
Hopefully, otherwise I don't know what we're doing for you.
There are different modes to the NexRad radar. And that's why some mornings, like you're going to especially notice this on clear and quiet mornings here in August and September. You might see wind farms show up.
Yeah.
You might see birds flying away from the nest. We call those roost rings.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on is that there's an inversion in the atmosphere where it's a little bit warmer, a few thousand feet up than down near the ground. And the radar beam actually hits that, and it can duct back down, and it can detect some of that stuff. But then there's also different modes that the National Weather Service can run. And one such mode, if there's no threat of precipitation at all, to save some power and some stress on the parts, they might put it in what's called clear air mode. I mean, you can even see clouds in clear air mode where it looks all scattered.
Very
weird.
Sensitive.
It's very sensitive. Yep. But you would not want to deal with that in a storm environment. It does not spin quite as frequently in clear air mode. And it also doesn't do as many vertical slices. And so it's kind of a power saving mode, but it's a little more sensitive when it's run there. And
they do that,
service,
right?
The
higher sensitivity, because it's clear air, we're not expecting anything. There's nothing really around. And so that way, if something starts to pop, we notice it a lot faster, quicker than maybe it might take otherwise. And then you can swap it into precip mode if somehow something came up that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all good questions. And it's not, and the thing that has bugged me for a long time, and I now have no longer engaged. I have learned. It's taken me almost 42 years to learn, but I have learned that I cannot fix stupid. I can only educate.
Yep.
And so if you see concentric rings around a radar, it's not what you think it is. It's not a government control ploy. In fact, the average radar doesn't have a whole lot of power to it that can do anything to manipulate anything. And the wind turbines are an issue when it comes to radar coverage, but there are algorithms that can filter out the locations of those. So yes, if they pop up, it's a problem temporarily, but typically in precip mode, we don't have to deal with that. They're a huge radio basically.
Yep.
There's nothing, it's one of those rabbit holes where I see it and I go, no, there's no manipulation going on. In fact, be thankful you have the device to at least see what's going on out there. But yeah, and there's actually, I don't know the title of this paper off the top of my head, but I have it in my file. There is literally a PDF document of 30 different radar artifacts that are out there. Various spikes that happen, various weird concentric rings. Sometimes the target will repeat itself over several states. And I believe, I'm going to use a big word. Is it bicastic decoupling?
Oh,
there's probably an engineer listening. I need to look and see, but it has to do with the target is hitting itself. It's almost like when a microphone at a concert, somebody walks too close to the speaker.
You get like reverb.
Goes, mang, 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 like that. That's like the radar going, and it just goes out in infinity. I might be wrong. I need to look up the term. But the point is, it is a complicated device, and there is no control and manipulation happening. It's doing its job. It does it really darn good, actually, too. We have some of the best radar coverage in the world, so it's awesome. Yeah,
we do. We're very, very. I don't know if lucky. We benefit very well from our radar network, and
we do
all the resources put into the National Weather Service.
Yep, and when the radars go down, it's amazing. It's amazing how much you don't think about it until you don't have it. Kind of like having power in your house. When you don't have radar in your hands all of a sudden, it's a big deal. So that's a big thing.
Well, let's move on. That was we got into the weeds a little bit on that one, I think, but hopefully that answered some of those questions. And if we didn't answer anything, or if you want us to get more into the weeds, hey, please let us know what specific things you want us to tackle. But we are let's go do our trivia question here towards the end of the show today. We're going to keep it simple. True or false? 50-50 chance on this one. Wall clouds stretch ominously across the sky as a storm rolls in. True or false? Wall clouds stretch ominously across the sky as a storm rolls in. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that, and Kyle will be back with the answer in just a minute.
All right, hopefully you've had a chance to discuss. Wall clouds stretch ominously across the sky as a storm rolls in. True or false? The answer to that is, you have it down to 2 in your head. I know you do.
Which is it going to be?
Actually false. What you're thinking of that stretches across the whole sky is a shelf cloud. Still an indication of turbulent weather, usually straight line winds. A wall cloud is a much more localized, what we call accessory, a feature of a storm. And that's usually a precursor to a possible tornado. Shelf clouds traditionally don't drop those. But if you do see a shelf, it makes for just a phenomenal photo opportunity. They look like the edges of spaceships coming in. I mean, they're really, really interesting to see for sure.
I would argue that's one of the most weathered questions that we get.
It is.
So many people see a shelf cloud and they're like, oh, it's a wall cloud. No. And then we have to explain it all again. So that's where this question came from.
There you go. Real quick before we check out here for the week. We're going to do a hurricane check-in, Jan. There has not been much.
No, it's been a very quiet season.
Yeah, we had one named storm that moved along the Gulf Coast. It was just a tropical storm. We have not had a named hurricane yet. That's not unexpected. In fact, Colorado State University put out their outlook and even reduced it even more. A strong El Nino year does not tend to have a whole lot of Atlantic hurricanes. Now, it only takes one, right? So you still have to be prepared. But I will tell you, historically, June and July in any given year are fairly quiet. August has a marked ramp up, though. And you can probably think of a number of big hurricanes over the years that have happened in August and certainly in September. Now, if we're talking 6 weeks...
Think of those big storms that you know and the letter that they start with because of how the naming system works. They probably are into the I's, K's, further down the line, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's been quiet so far. I'm just kind of keeping a very small eye on it. I'm not really watching it that strongly yet. If we go another 6 weeks with nothing, that would be interesting to me because that would put us right into peak season with nothing.
Yes.
So let's just wait. Yep. We've all seen those
mid-September
football games. That have been
mid-September is what we're looking for the
tropical
biggest
cyclones. But we've all seen those football games that start 3-0 and end 40-37. So sometimes the back half of the year can get a little more active. We'll see. Right now, it's not projected to be, but the cautionary note here is it only takes one. It only takes
the
one
Hurricanes versus the Terrestrials.
to cause problems.
Game of all time.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So there you go. There's your hurricane check-in for those in the tropics.
All right. Well, that wraps us up pretty well, I think, for this week. Again, as always, if you have questions, specific curiosities, maybe that we sparked today in our conversation, past episodes, or that we just haven't addressed yet, please let us know. We would love to have those right in to weatheredquestions@gmail.com, and we will be sure to answer those on an upcoming episode. As always, leave us a review, tell your friends and family. Those things help us more than you could possibly know to keep this going. You know, Kai and I just do this out of the goodness of our hearts. We just enjoy sharing our weather nerdiness with all of you. So thank you for coming along for this and joining in on the conversation. Until next week, stay safe.